All right.
Hang Out on Air is live. But where is our co-host?
Let me get a new window here. Okay. There you go. Cool. Sure, he'll be here in a minute or two. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh. BJ may also visit us tonight.
Oh, that'd be nice. It'll be nice. You want to wait for a couple of minutes and see if he's going to show up before we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to call him, but maybe that's what I should do.
Okay.
He's been around clicking on stuff on the event page or the Series 2 page. So, I believe he is aware. But let me go ahead and call him. Hold on. He said he's on his way.
Okay.
Oh, so you were saying it was nice reading this again?
Yeah. It's going to snow there on Sunday too.
Yeah.
It's not going to be bad. It's too warm, but we probably have a few inches or so for sure. Kind of cold here. It's getting cold. The temperature's dropping a lot.
Here too. I just turned up the heat.
I did too, because it was chilly in here today. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
So you found the welcome okay?
Excuse me?
You found the welcome okay?
Oh, sure. It's right in front of me.
Okay.
It's right there. Okay. I don't understand sometimes the struggle of finding anything when we're doing the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series and or the Black Feminist Reading Circle. Because it's always right there. I mean, right there. You can make it much easier. It's like click, click.
Yeah, I think the problem is I can overwhelm people. And so like with like I post things on the event page, and I post them on the regular Facebook page, and I post them on the private group, and I email them, and I post them on the Google Plus page. And so, I think for some people they get confused. And I do it in the different venues because, of course, I never know, what people are actually paying attention to. Everybody's not on Facebook.
Right, right,
They're not?
And everybody's not on Google Plus.
right.
And some people check their email and some don't, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to cover all bases, but I think the downside of that is it gets people confused. So
It might be easier for them to use whatever vehicle they use every time. I
right,
use my email every time. Although it's on Facebook, although it's on the event page, although it's on your page and every other page, I just use my email all the time. So maybe if they just confine themselves to one vehicle,
right,
you know what I'm saying? Once you
right,
get there, you can't make it any easier.
right,
It's
right.
really easy to get into anything that you need, the agenda, Google's,
Yes,
everything. So maybe
yes,
that's a good suggestion, is to confine themselves to one vehicle and stop looking at everything else.
right.
This is going to be there. Hi, Bill.
Hello, Venita. How are you?
I'm good now that you're here.
You're what?
I'm good now that you're here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
What do you
you're
want
back
to send a
home.
check?
Now, see, I meant that. That
Yeah.
was heartfelt. See, Michelle, that was heartfelt. And I meant that. And he said, yeah, right. Okay.
And I love you too.
Okay.
Well, welcome home. How is everything?
Well, it's going. It's not in our hands, nor is it in the doctor's hands. It's if anybody's hands, it's in my father's hands and his will to live. And he's exhibiting that. So he is making small increments. He's tired of being in the hospital. He expressed that. He can't talk, but he points. We ask him questions and he nods yes or no. But he's tired of being in the hospital. He's been in the hospital bed for quite a while now. So we just keep on praying and see what God has for us. That's all we can do.
Right. Well, I guess we are the main crew. We might get a couple of other visitors tonight, but of course you never know. Venita and I were just talking about, how I think some people get confused because I post so many different places and, it can be overwhelming, but there are a couple of people that said they may show up, so. And I haven't seen any distress calls, so,
Well, I kind of take a different view. I listen partially to what you were saying, and you can try all you want to be the end all, the be all to everybody, and that never works. As you know, in all the years I've been publishing, that's one of the things, and I'm just getting to the point after all these years of understanding that. And coming to the conclusion that if people want to know what you're up to and what you're doing, they'll find you. People are basically lazy. I mean, you can look at the turnout of anything you do for a good cause, and you can see the participation level is not desirable or what you think it should be. So we just push forward and do the best that we can. And if they jump on the bandwagon, which they all will once you get on the Oprah Winfrey show, but other than that, they're just like, they have agendas that, proceed. I don't care if they're sitting around picking their nose on Friday nights. They'd rather do that than, remember to do something significant. So I wouldn't feel too bad about it, nor would I stress myself.
I don't feel bad about it. Early in my Facebook career, like maybe around 2011, I remember one of my Facebook friends and I were chatting about how people can't be bothered to even hit the like button on stuff. And we wrote a note about it, and part of what we were saying was we were getting ready to cut people off because, we have these lengthy friends lists, but 99.9% of them you never hear anything from. So when I did that, people started coming out of the woodwork, Bill. No! Don't cut me off. I watch your stuff, or I read your stuff all the time. And they had all of these reasons, some of which I hadn't thought of, but all of these reasons for why they can't hit the like button. You know, they're scared their boss is going to see them and all kind of stuff like that. So, but it really was instructive, you know, for me in that regard, that you never really know who's paying attention.
Right, that's true.
Recently, I went through the old videos from the Global Black Feminist, and looked at the number of views up through June of 2015 when we ended session 3, Venita. And so those are videos that had been on there, most of them have been on there about a year. And I only picked out the ones that had 50 or more views. But the highest one had like 2,400 something views. And, you know, but there were those with 700 and 500 and, you know, 100 and all that kind of stuff. And so, again, you know, you never really know who notices what and when. So I don't get bent out of shape about it at all. You know, I mean, I do think in both groups we're producing some really good content, and it would be nice if folks would help to share some of it. But you know, I'm just gonna do what I do.
Or you can do.
Yeah.
And you're doing a good job at it.
Thank you.
Oh, it is. Every day. Every day.
So, all right. Well, it's 6:42. We may as well go ahead and get started.
Might as well.
Venita is going to do the welcome today. So, it's on you, Venita.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Series 2 of the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series. My name is Venita Walker, and I am one of the Revolutionary Love leaders of this online group. I'm based in Cromwell, Connecticut. This series runs from December the 18th of 2015 to April 22nd of 2016. Our reading selection is Black Male D, spelled M-A-L-D, which is a powerful collection of essays, commentaries, speeches, poetry, and stories by revolutionary voices of love, compiled and produced by Inner Child Press. Writer and publisher administrator Logan Michelle Odom, and poet, writer, publisher, and marketeer extraordinaire William S. Peters, Sr., known to his many fans as Just Bill, are co-hosting this series. Our Series 2 Love Leaders meet each Friday evening from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Google's Plus Hangouts on-air platform. This series is open to the public, and you should feel free to join our live broadcast whenever you like. You may find the Revolutionary Love Leadership Series on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook, and always feel free to join us in reading our story together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill, how do you pronounce the name of the book? I read it as blackmailed.
Well, just like the past tense of blackmail, blackmailed, and you know, so it's M-A-L-E with the tilde and a D. So it's just a coin on the phrase blackmail or to be blackmailed. And you know, to a large extent, the metaphor is that, you know, we too are held ransom, you know, because of the conditions of, you know, Western society.
Okay. Okay. So, and tell us, I guess, your introduction, Bill.
My name is William S. Peters. What introduction?
That.
Oh, Venita did such a nice job. My name is William S. Peters. I'm a publisher, writer, author, you know, activist, humanitarian, amongst so many other things, and wear a lot of hats, just like Miss Miss Odom and Venita, and we come together, you know, for the purposes of being able to share and have a dialogue around some of the things that affect our community, and that's me, period, point blank.
All right, thank you. And I'm Michelle Odom. I'm located in Brooklyn, New York. And so tonight we are really excited, I think, to be discussing the historic speech by Malcolm X, the ballot or the bullet, delivered in 1964. And it's pretty interesting how it relates to our current situation as African Americans and our current situation as being in the midst of a presidential election year. So I think we may as well get to it. I'll go ahead and read the summary. The ballot or the bullet, delivered by Malcolm X. It'll be liberty or it will be death. The famous and historic speech. You know what? Let me stop. Bill, there's that beeping noise again that we had a couple of weeks ago. And I don't remember why, but I think I ended up suspecting that it might be coming out of your system. Try muting for a minute. And are you muted?
Okay, and
okay. Let me go through the summary and then we'll see if it comes back up. The famous and historic speech, The Ballot or the Bullet, delivered by Malcolm X in April 1964, is full of optimism that Black people would turn their shame, pain, and ineffectiveness at getting results from the American political process into demonstrable outcomes. Much like today, this speech, delivered nearly 52 years ago, was given at a time in American history when many Black people were disillusioned by the electoral process, believed it was too corrupt to meet the needs of our community, and high stakes were on the line during the presidential election year. Also like today, open racism among the candidates and frustration that had reached a boiling point had some Black Americans seriously considering a violent response to social, economic, and political oppression. Malcolm predicted that if full voting rights were not extended to the African American population, the bullet would be the only logical means of securing our rights and access to needed government resources. The Voting Rights Act was finally passed in 1965. Nevertheless, some enforcement-related provisions have required reauthorization over the years. And today, we see these rights being challenged in a significant number of states. The Washington Post reports that since 2010, 21 states have passed new laws restricting voting access. Some cut back on early voting hours, and others limited the number of documents considered valid to identify a legitimate voter. As in Malcolm's time, voting rights for African Americans have become an issue in the 2016 presidential campaign. Malcolm X encouraged African Americans in this speech, The Ballot or the Bullet, to put differences aside and focus on our common political, economic, and social oppression at the hands of the white man. He saw Black people becoming more politically conscious and determined to make substantive change. He looked at the way white politicians had a record of raising hopes and letting us down with their trickery and treachery. Finally, Malcolm looks to the future, predicts a violent response by African Americans, and charts a path forward to unity, pursuit of human rights, and more effective political participation through the practice of Black nationalism, including potentially a Black nationalist party and army. Okay. Um, I didn't hear anything, Bill, as I went through the summary, so I am still thinking.
What it was messages coming in, and I closed that browser, on my instant messaging. So I closed that browser, so I won't hear them.
Oh, I still hear it.
I still hear it.
It's not coming from here then.
It stopped.
It stopped, yeah. Okay, so Bill, why don't you go ahead and read point A, please?
Point A. Okay. Let me get it back up. Okay. Point A, under disillusion. 1964 threatens to be the most explosive year America has ever witnessed, Malcolm predicted. It is the year when all of the white politicians will be back in the so-called Negro communities jiving you and me for some votes. The year when all the white political crooks will be right back in your and my community with their false promises, building up our hopes for a letdown with their trickery and their treachery, with their false promises which they don't intend to keep. As they nourish these dissatisfactions, it can only lead to one thing, an explosion. And now we have the type of black man on the scene in America today who just doesn't intend to turn the other cheek any longer. I am not an American. I'm one of the 22 million black people who are the victims of Americanism. These 22 million victims are waking up. Their eyes are coming open. They're becoming politically mature, he said. You want me to continue?
No.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. Venita, why don't you mute yourself too so we can test, where the sound is coming from?
Number one, do you think African Americans have matured politically in the way Malcolm X predicted? If so, what leads you to that conclusion? If not, what barriers have stunted our political growth? Number two, Barack Obama raised the hopes of a generation of young voters with his 2008 run for the presidency. Some have been disappointed with what he has been able to accomplish on their behalf and have now joined the ranks of those already disillusioned by the American political process. Frustrated with the lesser of two evils choices provided in this year's presidential campaign, at least one organization in New York City is encouraging black people to write in reparations now as their vote for U.S. president in 2016. What do you think of this idea?
Okay, thank you. You can unmute Venita. We still hear the noise, Bill, when you're the only one coming in. I really think it's coming through your system, and I want to take a few minutes to try to figure it out, because when you're playing the tapes back, it's like Chinese water torture. It's beep.
Well, it can't be nothing here because I shut the browser. I shut the browser off that was producing the ping on my side. So I don't know where it's coming from, but I know it's not coming from here because there's nothing to ping.
It's not coming from here. In our other group, there's never a ping.
Never. No.
It's
I really wish you'd look a little bit harder, Bill. We can wait because it's aggravating as hell.
I mean, Logan, I know computers, and
Yeah.
I look, like I said, I shut the browser down.
Yeah.
Okay? My Mozilla browser's on, and every time I get a notice, it would ping. Okay, I shut that down, so I'm not getting any notices whatsoever at the moment.
Okay, so since you know computers, then what do you imagine is going on if I'm muted and Venita is muted and you're the only one that has your mic open, and that's the only time we hear the noise and we never hear the noise in the other group? What else could it possibly be?
I could not tell you, but what I can do is I can shut down the Google Hangouts and restart it and see if that takes it away. Because it has to be a system noise, just like we had a few weeks ago in Google Hangouts. Those system noises are not necessarily in our control. But as I said, there's no pings coming from my computer because I shut everything down. So everything else, the other browser that was giving me the pings, the Mozilla, I shut that down. I'm now on Google Chrome. So it's impossible for Mozilla to communicate when it's shut off.
Do you have Microsoft Outlook open?
I don't even use it.
Okay. Okay. I haven't heard it for the last couple of minutes. Have you, Venita?
No.
Okay. So let's keep going. Maybe it has resolved itself. So on questions 1 or 2, anybody? Do you think African American? Go ahead.
I think that when we look at Malcolm's powerful as it may be, in today's times, considering where we have come to, like not very far down the road, it seems to be very, very idealistic, in its application, because most certainly I think that I don't know many black folks out there willing to die for the cause, so from that perspective, Malcolm was, but from that perspective, I think that it's very, very idealistic, and also to take in consideration that this particular speech was written prior to Malcolm's Reformation, Malcolm's transformation, and his visit to Mecca. So there's a few aberrations in reference to this speech, coming from Malcolm. Yet still, it is very, very significant in reference to that. We all understand that we must do something. So putting the idealistic, perspective aside, we're still faced with the question of what are we to do? Is it the ballot or the bullet? Is it economic reformation in reference to our community? How do we gather, any particular type of formidable political stance that make them stand up, notice, and start to do something beyond telling us the lies and the false promises, as Malcolm insinuated.
Okay, thank you. I guess for me on question 1, I agree with Bill that that there don't appear to be that many black people that are willing to take a bullet, in the cause of freedom. But in terms of the question of have African Americans matured politically in the way Malcolm predicted, I don't think we have matured in the way that Malcolm predicted. He was looking at young people, that were heading into the Black Power movement, and who were a little bit more courageous and determined, just like we see in the Black Lives Matter today, sort of the optimism of youth. And so I understood why he, felt at that point that we might be headed into a real violent situation. But of course, that has not exactly happened. But I do think that black people have matured politically to a certain extent. In 1964, we had legal voting rights, but there were so many blockages to them that we didn't really have the widespread practice of voting. We didn't have all of the black elected mayors and congresspeople and other kinds of politicians that we have experienced in the last 50 years. And so all of that, to me, goes into our learning curve. But I still think that there's a lot that we need to learn about the political process. Venita, did you want to respond to that question? Hi, Shareef.
Hello, everybody.
Hey. I think it's. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Venita.
I don't necessarily believe that Black Afro-Americans have matured politically, per se. However, the next question refers to Barack Obama, who raised hope for generations of young voters. One thing I can say is that we might not have matured, but I do believe that we started to get more involved in the political process because of Barack Obama. I really do believe he was very instrumental, probably, I don't even know if it's inadvertently, but in getting Black folks to actually try to understand the political process. You know, he did wake a lot of folks up that have been, disconnected because of disappointment. But we still have a long ways to go. And you're right, we don't have folks that are willing to take a baseball bat, a bullet, or anything else. It's almost like we're lethargic at this point. A lot of folks aren't even willing to even talk about it. So we have a ways to go, but I'm sure eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, and there's some revolutionary types out there, but they appear to be very small in number.
Yeah, and their revolutionary voices are a lot more quieter than they were.
Yeah, see, that I think is just a function of mass media. You
Yeah.
know, if you're saying anything that is going to be stimulating for the public, it will not be shown on mass media.
Right.
And so you really have to kind of go out of your way. You have to already have a political consciousness to send you out of your way to find the voices that are life-giving.
And that's so true. I think, from my perspective, because I indulge in this, I see a lot more than what I used to see, voices out there speaking out. And as Logan said, the media's not going to give it any coverage. I mean, it's just like, going back to the COINTELPRO days. Anything we do, they want to vilify, which is why Black Lives Matter stay in the news so much, because they're trying their best to, if you would, what do you call that? Castrate the movement, because it does empower people, and not only Black folks, it's empowering folks of other persuasions to understand, what we're facing. Because I've never, be honest with you, in today's day and time, I've never seen so many European folk, involved in the cause as well. Though it may appear that it's a black and white issue, it definitely is not a black and white issue. It's a humanitarian issue. So I'm encouraged, but where do we go from here? Is the
Well, yeah, and that's the question too. Question 2 is, one New York City organization is encouraging Black people to write in reparations now as their vote for U.S. president in 2016. What do you think of this idea? And I have not decided what I think of the idea, but I do understand and appreciate where this particular group of people is coming from. And, basically they're coming from a place of, we never have more than the lesser of two evils to choose from. And how do we break that paradigm? How do we do something different that will get us to start to think about what we really want and what we really need to go about getting it? So, do either anybody here have a reaction to that idea, writing in reparations now?
And I had to go ahead, Street. I defer.
Hey, my brother, how you doing?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Are you back, man?
Yeah, I'm back. Just got back last night.
You tired? Yeah. All right, man.
Yes, indeed.
I'm gonna get some rest, man. You need it.
Yeah.
You just hit a chord when you talk reparations. People have been talking about reparations, you know, from time immemorial. It seems like, and I've been around that movement myself personally. When some organizations I had been affiliated with were dealing. They were talking. That was on the agenda. Reparations was on the agenda. But you know, it sounds good. But look, when you go back to who was it that said? Was it Du Bois or was it somebody else of note that said power concedes only the power? Power concedes only the power. And that is true. That's the truth. If anybody denies that, they're not living in reality. So if you don't have the power to twist some arms in some kind of way, if it's not, look, if it's not militarily, and certainly it's not going to be militarily, all right, because we're not crazy, and okay, it's not going to be militarily, all right. You know, people be talking all that fly stuff about this and that, and we know that's crazy, okay, because it ain't reality, okay. You do what you can do. You carry the load you're capable of carrying. If you do anything beyond that, that's not very wise, and it's counterproductive. You don't achieve anything in terms of what you wanted to achieve. In fact, it'll cost you to go back even further than you was when you began that insane kind of a quest that had no kind of rhyme or reason to it. And we often get caught up in rhetoric and in what we want to be, as opposed to what we're capable of, and what realistically we will be in reference to the society that we're dealing with on an everyday 24/7 basis. Reparations, look, if you look into the dollars and cents of what reparations would cost, based on the crimes that were committed. When you talk about crimes of humanity,
but just, you know, to fairly represent what the organization is talking about, they're not imagining that reparations is going to be granted as a result of people writing it in on their ballot. What they're really trying to do is to get us to think about this from a different angle, to open another window. So. Okay. From that perspective, what do you think, Shareef?
And so, well, I haven't come up off the top of my head with a different angle in terms of how to approach reparations, other than
it's not the issue of approaching reparations. It's the issue of our continuing and unquestioned loyalty to the Democratic Party that does not seem to ever feel a need to give back.
Was that in the framework of the argument of the conversation before I came in about the Democratic Party? Was that part of the framework of the conversation?
Well, it's a part of the framework of the question 2 on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point about the Democratic Party, because you know, black folk in America have been very loyal to the Democratic Party for as long as I can remember, as opposed to the Republican Party. Even though there was a time when you had Southern Democrats that were just as raw and nasty as the Tea Party people today, maybe more so back in the day. You know, you had Southern Democrats; they weren't Republicans. You know, you have a different setup now with the Tea Party thing, and you know, the Republican Party has split up. And they even say stuff like you have brought, you know, some notable broadcasters say, news people say, Ronald Reagan, who was like the deity of the Republican Party, like they you know, they light a candle for him or whatever. You know, it's like you know, they said he wouldn't be Republican enough for the Tea Party people. He would not be conservative enough. He would not be conservative enough. They would conscrie they would interpret the things that he had done as caving in or being weak on certain issues that they, and that's one of the insane things about that mentality, because in any political arena, a social political arena, it has to be give and take. You have to have compromise. It's just like any relationship. You know, if a branch is rigid, it's going to break. It has to have some sway. That's why the Creator had the wisdom to make the trees where they move with the wind. You know, even when they build skyscrapers, the skyscrapers have some give, and they move a little bit. If skyscrapers didn't move, they would snap. They would break like twigs. You know, so that's just an analogy. I mean, it's you know, you have to have give and take. And when you have this staunch kind of, if anybody stands on something like so staunch, there's no wiggle room, there's no room for discussion, that means there's no dialogue. And if there's no dialogue, there's not going to be any progress in terms of any resemblance of common ground. You won't achieve common ground. That being said, about reparations, if reparation is just about a rallying cry, when in reality we know that, I hate to say it, you know, people don't want me to say this. I mean, perhaps, but I mean, it seems unachievable to me in the reality of the time that we're living in and what we face in terms of the power structure. And one of the things that exacerbate the problem with so many movements. And here's another thing: you don't even really have movements now in the communities of color. Real movements. I mean, real movements. Like there used to be something that at least had structurally seemed.
Shareef, the alarm went off. Do you need a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
a minute, perhaps. No, you used to have some kind of movements. You know, when they allude to the civil rights movement, for instance, you know, that wasn't a panacea. They had a lot of things they had to work on. I mean, they had problems, and you know, there was a lot of infighting, and even then, you know, during the time of Martin, during the time of Malcolm, who were contemporaries, and Adam Clayton Powell was on the set, and people like that. Some very dynamic people. Let's put it this way: you don't even got nobody near those kind of dynamic figures now that I can think of on the horizon that had the potential to be leaders and were sincere and ready to give it all up for the people, not just preach that, you know.
Right. So, are you gonna have to leave early tonight?
I can hang a little longer because the time changed.
Oh, okay. But
because we moved when the time moved up, you know, my schedule got a little rearranged.
Are you gonna be able to stay until 8 o'clock?
Practically.
Okay. Just remind me before you need to leave to set some time aside in case you want to read a poem. Okay.
I'm gonna try to stay to 8.
Okay.
You know, I'm gonna try my best.
Okay.
And excuse me, I don't know if I told you guys this before, but Friday is schedule-wise, it's a crazy day for me.
Yeah, we know.
All right.
That's why I was going to do the poem now. If you were gonna
I apologize for not coming in at 6:30, but it's been very difficult for me to do that. You know.
Yeah, it's okay.
No disrespect.
Okay, well, let's move on so we don't use up all our time talking about how sorry we are. Venita, do you want to read point B, please?
Sure. Ballot or bullet? Freedom or death? It was the black man's vote that put the present administration in Washington, D.C. Your vote, your dumb vote, your ignorant vote, your wasted vote put in an administration in Washington, D.C. that has seen fit to pass every kind of legislation imaginable, saving you until last. Then filibustering on top of that. And what have they given you for it? Asked Malcolm X. Later in the speech, Malcolm said, soon now, As the Negro awakens a little more and sees the vise that he's in, sees the bag that he's in, sees the real game that he's in, then the Negroes going to develop a new tactic. In 1964, it's the time now for you and me to become more politically mature and realize what the ballot is for, what we're supposed to get when we cast the ballot. And that if we don't cast the ballot, it's going to end up in a situation where we're going to have to cast a bullet. It's either a ballot or a bullet. And now you're facing a situation where the young Negroes coming up, they don't want to hear the turn the other cheek stuff. No. In Jacksonville, those were teenagers. They were throwing
Molotov
cocktails. I always get that word mixed up. Negroes have never done that before. There's new thinking coming in. There's a new strategy coming in. It's been Molotov cocktails this month, hand grenades next month, and something else the next month. It will be the ballot or it will be the bullet. It will be liberty or it will be death. By ballot, I only mean freedom, instructed Malcolm. Question. The choice Malcolm posed between the ballot or the bullet is really a choice between freedom and death. What do you think of Malcolm's prediction in 1964? That Afro-Americans were ready, oh, I hear that noise again. We're ready to fight to the death for freedom. Number 4, do you think a willingness to fight to death is a requirement of freedom? Why or why not? Do you think Afro-Americans are more or less committed to freedom in 2016 than they were in 1964? Why or why not? Do you think violence, Molotov cocktails, hand grenades, and other tactics of guerrilla warfare is a viable approach to securing freedom from oppression for Afro-Americans? Why or why not?
Okay, thank you. We kind of answered that one already, but not exactly. So does anybody want to respond to 3 or 4? Shareef, do you have the agenda up?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We may have talked about that before you came in. Do you want to respond to 3 or 4, Shareef?
Yeah, I think history has borne out that.
Okay, excuse me a minute. I'll be right back.
No problem.
But go ahead, Shareef.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes, honey. Yes.
And how you doing there?
I'm doing wonderful, Shareef. Nice to see you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you. In reality, people are not ready to commit to that extent. And that's one of the reasons why we're not taken seriously. People know if, even in the street, if somebody's for real, you know if they're for real. If they're bluffing, you know they're bluffing. If you're really from the street, you know who's jiving and you know who's for real. Everybody know them people in the neighborhood that you don't play with.
Mm-hmm.
And you know them people that's full of you know what, too. Okay? So that's on a lesser level, but you can apply that same approach to social political movements, and people don't even want to hear that. If you talk that today, especially when you got a name like mine, if you talk that kind of stuff today, I'll be wearing an orange jumpsuit tomorrow, and I'll be on this little island in the Caribbean that we're having relations with now, right?
There you go.
Cuba. You see me in an orange jumpsuit. You say, I know that, brother. But that's what it is. I mean, people have not seriously embraced that concept. And remember when Malcolm used to say, when he talked about this, there's something else we're leaving out. Bill, I think you're aware of what I'm talking about if I bring this up. He used to discourage the black community from being on welfare. He said that you can't take anything from your enemy and defeat your enemy. You cannot be dependent upon him. You have to be self-subsistent, or at least have an alternative to asking him, whoever that may be, powers to be, for assistance, and then talk about him in the next breath, out of his name, to put it lightly. So you can't tell a cat he's this jive cracker or this dirty racist and blah and blah and blah and blah, and then the next day you go down and ask him for some bread and some meat and some cheese and some peanut butter. This is where he was coming from. He's not the only one that voiced that concept. There was a great leader in Africa named Umar Mukhtar in Libya many years ago. Umar Mukhtar fought the Italians when they invaded Libya. They had made a movie about him, and Umar Mukhtar fought the Italians with hardly no kind of weapons that compared to, at that time, I forgot exactly what it was in the early 20th century.
Excuse me, do you need more time?
Yeah, I need a couple minutes just to finish that point.
All right.
Umar Mukhtar said the same thing that Malcolm said, that Hajj Malik said. He said, you can't take nothing from your enemy. You can't be dependent upon him, and then effectively do warfare against his tyranny. And so we have never solved that situation to even remotely get anywhere close to the reality of the battle or the ballot or the bullet. We don't even successfully deal with the ballot the way we should, which is less demanding in terms of sacrifice. Even though there was a time when just to get a chance to submit your ballot, you could, might have cost your life. People had went through that, and sacrificed for that. So, there's a lot of things being said that are just amount to rhetoric, but when you dissect them, in reality, there's no substance to it. And maybe somebody hear me say that, they don't even want to hear me say that, because people are in denial about those things, and it hurts sometimes to hear the truth. In fact, the truth does hurt. That's real. It's painful. And that's, I can leave it right there. I'm sorry if I took up too much time.
If I may, just to kind of add a little context, to this speech. This speech was written back April 3rd, 1964. And we got to come to the, in justifying the then and the now. In 1964 was the height of the COINTEL, project, fostered by Mr. Hoover of the FBI. The height of the beginning of the welfare, added in our communities, where they broke down our families and said the man can't be in the family. The beginning of the drugs that were filtrated into our communities. We stopped the gang wars. We stopped that. They can't take credit for that. And then going forward over the last 50 years, we've had rap, we've had video games, we had the lack of voting power. So there's a lot of things that have transpired and are continuing to transpire. And Shareef knows, and I'm sure, Logie, you know about all the political prisoners who still exist to this day. Because they had voice or because they spoke out, just like Malcolm was doing. I mean, there's some very, very powerful voices that are still behind bars or have been murdered, simply because they were a threat to the freedom or the liberation or the awakening of the African American community. We even look in the 1968 Olympics when Tommy and them held their fists up talking about black power. They were stripped of their medals. So this was kind of like an international oppression that are affecting the American blacks, and we see it really, in truth, we see it all across the whole globe. It's not just in America that we're facing these particular type of oppressions, but all across the globe. But the question is, how much of change has changed, and what are we going to do? It always comes back to that square one. What are we going to do? And I think that's what Malcolm was voicing. What are we going to do? These are our choices, the ballot or the bullet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Venita, anything?
No.
I agree, if I hear Shareef correctly, that we are in no position to be engaging in guerrilla warfare or anything else. Um, uh, you know, from a violent perspective. Um, and so, no, I don't think violence is a viable approach for African Americans for a lot of the reasons that have been stated here, and even more. Like, for example, the list that Bill gives of some of the strategies that have been used over the last 50 years to lull us to sleep. I would add another big one is undereducation, you know. And so if we don't really even have the foundation that would help us process the things that are happening to us, then we're not likely to be inclined to move in either a violent or a non-violent way. We we just, you know, we're not even sure there's a problem. I was telling Venita, I went to a meeting, a community meeting, was it last week or this past Monday, and a friend of mine has started something called the Harlem Liberation School, and it's like modeled after the Freedom Schools. So it's a community education program. And they were having a conversation about stereotypes. And they were throwing out examples from the media like Jerry Springer and Maury and things like that. And so I suggested that Cookie, the ex-drug dealing, ex-prisoner, wife of the music mogul on the Fox TV show Empire, was an example of the stereotypical image of what the black woman is about that's fed to us. You know, the show is reminiscent of the 70s blaxploitation movies. And so I came home, I called Venita. I said, Venita, I'm glad I got out of there with the skin on my back because they tried to skin me alive.
They didn't like what you said about Empire?
They didn't like what I said about Empire. And Empire, of course, is an award-winning show, you know, because it is being hailed even in the black community as this model of, I don't know. But my point is, that's where a lot of our people are, you know, the educated, the money, right on down the line. That's where we are. And so that is all kind of internal work to me that takes a long time to change, but until we can kind of get to dealing with that kind of stuff, we ain't in no position to be talking about a violent revolution, because if we had a violent revolution, I'd be scared of the black folks.
That's right.
So, you know, it's a huge thing. Anyway, let's go on to point C. Shareef, do you want to read point C? I don't think you've read anything, right?
No.
Okay, why don't you read point C?
The way forward, modern challenges and solutions. In the current century, we continue to be plagued in the African American community by many of the issues that concern Malcolm X and people of his generation. young people today are struggling with challenges to voting rights, economic oppression, and grave issues like mass incarceration and police violence, among other things. The Black Lives Matter movement has intervened to offer solutions that are perhaps midway between the ballot and the bullet. The late and great Malcolm X used the ballot or the bullet speech in part to identify key markers on the path forward to solutions for Black Americans. These markers included new allies. Guess that's coalition. That's coalition. New allies. Coalition. First, we need some new friends. We need some new allies. The entire civil rights struggle needs a new interpretation, a broader interpretation, an interpretation that will enable us to come into it and take part in it. Secondly, human rights. Another. We need to expand the civil rights struggle to a higher level, to the level of human rights. By the way, you know about Malcolm trying to do that. He had talked about going to the United Nations during the times just prior to his death, and they had even floated that that was one of the reasons why they took him out, because he was trying to bring the human rights issue to the General Assembly of the United Nations in reference to Black Americans, the plight of Black Americans at that time under Jim Crow. Continuing, Black nationalist politics. The political philosophy of Black nationalism means that the Black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own community, and the politicians in his own community no more. The Black man in the Black community has to be re-educated into the science of politics so he will know what politics is supposed to bring him in return. I guess that goes back to what Malcolm says about what you getting out of it, what you getting out of it. What we had mentioned earlier. Black nationalist economics. The economic philosophy of Black nationalism only means that we should control the economy of our community, the stores, the banks. It involves a re-education program. Our people have to be made to see that anytime you take your dollar out of your community and spend it in a community where you don't live, the community where you live will get poorer and poorer, and the community where you spend your money will get richer and richer. Malcolm talked about this a lot, about how much money stays in other communities and how much money goes out of our communities. This is an old problem. Never had been solved yet. Do you remember when he talked about that back in the day when Malcolm used to talk about that? Black nationalist social habits. The social philosophy of Black nationalism only means that we have to get together and remove the evils, the vices such as alcoholism, drug addiction, and other evils that are destroying the moral fiber of our community. We ourselves have to lift the level of our community, the standard of our community to a higher level, make our own society beautiful, that we will be satisfied in our own social circles and won't be running around here trying to knock our way into a social circle where we're not wanted. That's a loaded statement right there. Anyway, to continue. What do you think of the strategies and objectives Malcolm identified? Okay. All the above, right? Have Black Americans made much progress towards the objective Malcolm identified 52 years ago, in your opinion? Between the strategies Malcolm identified and the dramatic in-your-face performance approach of the Black Lives Matter movement, or any other strategies, goals, or objectives you see, how would you set the priorities for the Black community if you were in charge of Black America?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody?
Can I say something? I don't want to dominate. Anybody break in, just break in, please.
No, go
Well,
ahead,
something came
Shareef.
to mind when I was reading that. But one thing of note was about. I've spoke about, people have spoken about this before. That one of the reasons why movements fell apart, including the Black Panther Party and other movements similar to that, and right on through the civil rights movement or sub movements, because you had movements within movements. Remember during them days, you had a number of different type of movements. Students for Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and what was that thing with Mark Rudd, the Democrat at a Columbia University? You had a lot of movements that were aligned with bigger movements, And one of the things that one of the malaise that they all suffered was immorality. And what was stated here is very true. You have to have a high standard of morality. And very often that's associated with a certain belief system that inspires you to have that morality in your life. And if that does not exist, that certainly may very well be the problem why you don't have a criteria by which you live. And for lack of a better term, live very loosely. And that could be sexually, it could be habits like drugs and gambling, etc., etc. All of those things have plagued any efforts that have been made that resembled going in the right direction, and stopped it in its tracks. People don't allude to that. People don't talk about some of the things that was going on in the different groups that came down in the 60s, that was around in the 60s, and how it fell apart because the fiber was weak, because it wasn't based on no strong ethics and high caliber of behavior that you need to function as a real revolutionary. As a real revolutionaries are practically pious people. Real revolutionaries are clean people. Real revolutionaries are educated people. I just wanted to bring that. This is just the way I express it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Well, I guess question 5, what do you think of the strategies and objectives Malcolm identified? I think that he identified a good plan. I think that there are a lot of, or certainly a number of brilliant Black Americans who have written about and enunciated good plans. But of course, a plan is no better than the people who move to implement it. And so, have Black Americans made much progress toward the objectives Malcolm X identified 52 years ago? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And it's really pretty sad. It's also sad. One of the things that that we're doing, the book that we're reading in our other group, Bill, is called When and Where I Enter, The Impact of Black Women on Race and Sex in America by Paula Giddings.
Excuse me for 2 minutes. I'm going to mute this real quick and come back.
Okay. And so she talks about, among other things, the Black Woman's Club movement. But this is before even the National Council of Negro Women. These are women really starting like right after slavery, that late 1800s, early 1900s period. And they ended up with an organization called the National Association of Colored Women that had 50,000 black women in it, 40,000 of whom were devoted to the voting rights challenge for women. And so, you know, it's one thing to talk about the lack of progress that we've made in the last 50 years since Malcolm wrote this speech, but it's something else to look at really the digression that even Malcolm says at this speech in 1964 that we're worse off than we were in 1954. So it's not like we're even standing still, but we seem to be backpedaling with all deliberate speed. So, you know, I don't know how we stop that, of course, but I do know that there are a lot of plans out there, and any of them are good, but all of them require that we work them.
Yeah.
All of them require that, you know, we put some elbow grease into the situation. On question 8, if I were in charge of Black America, what would be my priorities? I kind of would turn this list around that Malcolm enunciated. I would start with the Black nationalist social habits. You know, those individual personal things that we have control over, but are probably the most difficult for us to talk about and think about and actually change.
Right.
But if we can't crack that nut, then, you know, we ain't going nowhere else.
If I may, you know, there's this list that, you know, a consortium of psychologists put out, and it's called the 7 levels of consciousness. And without going through all 7, I might have mentioned this before, the middle segment of consciousness is made up of what they call sheep, or sheeple are followers. If we look back to, you know, whatever inroads or progress we have made as a people, it always was centered around leaders, whether it was Malcolm, Martin, you know, Elijah Muhammad, the Black Panthers, the Huey Newtons, the A-Trap Browns. It was always centered around people rallying behind a leader. Since those times in the 60s, we haven't had any prolific leaders. You know, Jesse could not step up. It wasn't no Julia. I mean, none of these leaders that Malcolm or Martin left in their wake, you know, could step up and be as prolific as those leaders were to rally people to follow them. The thing we follow the most probably are the rappers, you know, like, you know, but you know, their particular interests are not necessarily a community-oriented interest. So I think that, you know, to a large extent, when we think in terms of where we are today, the energy is still there, you know, and the consciousness is still there, you know, but the motivation to go forward, which is, as you were saying, we're going backwards, we're digressing. The motivation to go forward is lacking. You know, we don't have anybody that's, you know, cracking the whip saying, okay, let's go out here to the rally. I remember the last big thing I participated in was the Million Man March. How long ago was that? You know, what, 20 years? Yeah, I don't even know. But the point of the matter is, you know, our community exhibits a strong need for leadership, someone to stand out in front, you know, and for them to paint the bullseye on the chest, you know, as our leaders have done, and say, okay, I'm doing this for you, and we need to have this done, and, you know, we rally behind them.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, it concerns me because the idea of needing leadership, I mean, I do think that you're right that people want leadership. In fact, I was at a different community meeting last week, the one where we were talking about this idea of writing in reparations on the ballot, and an older gentleman that was in the audience said to the person that was leading the meeting, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. And you know, I was both amused and disheartened by it. But because I understand that that's what people want. But to me, the more you understand about the nature of the war that we're in, the more you understand that no prominent leader is going to be allowed to take a national stage, get national attention. And so the more incumbent it becomes, in my mind, on the individual to develop an understanding about what they can do to help themselves move forward, to help their family move forward, to help their community move forward, you know, what we can do as individuals. You know, you talked about the rap music, but that is the thing that is targeted at us. To me, it really is like psychological warfare. That is the stuff that we are drowned in. And so if that's all you hear and that's all you get, and the crap that comes off of the TV, and that's all you get, and you're getting it at a stage in life before you've developed your critical thinking skills, then it's very effective at influencing how you move through the world. And so, you know, in terms of things not being realistic, I think this idea of some great national, great black hope leader coming along to tell us what to do is the thing that's not realistic. And that somehow we have to figure out as individuals what to do. You know, the thing about Ella Baker, and I consider myself very much in her tradition. In fact, our birthdays are 4 days apart. But you know, her whole thing was about developing mass leadership, so that when one leader gets killed, and we know they're going to get killed, the next person knows what to do. And that's how you keep it moving. Whenever you have this large sitting duck target out there, of course the FBI and the CIA are going to take them out. Why wouldn't they? That's what they do. So we know that. So at what point do we have a learning curve around what we've experienced?
Well, that. I concur with that. I think one of the reasons why that hasn't transpired is it's multifaceted. One glaring reason is people have been spoiled by people have been spoiled by comforts. Even poor folk in America, compared to other economic structures on an international level, even poor folk in our hoods, in the poorest neighborhoods in America, have much more wealth than people in other parts of the world. There's people if you haven't traveled the earth, you haven't seen poverty. I've been blessed to do some traveling in the world. I've been to Africa. I've been to Asia, and I've seen people living out of garbage. You know, I've seen things that you normally don't see here, even though you do see.
Just so we're not confused, are you saying that we should be happy with what we have because we are already better off than others?
No. What I'm saying is that one of the tricks to pacify a people who the system has their foot on. You there? One of the tricks that systems incorporate to keep their foot on a certain group of people, you know, or to keep people oppressed, whether it be, you know, socially, economically, is to pacify them. And one of the ways you pacify them is through material gain. And make that a priority in their minds, that they live to acquire things. They live to acquire things.
Mm-hmm.
Whether rather that becomes a much higher priority than acquiring and maintaining and sustaining values and principles.
Mm-hmm.
Values and principles have disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and in the wake of that, you have the results that we face. And what you had articulated a moment ago is one of the byproducts of that reality.
It's funny that you say that. I just had a long conversation with a very close family member, without calling their name, about the same thing last night. Morality. It seems that folks just now, Michelle did mention the book that we're presently reading in our other circle. And these women from the mid-late 18th century up to the 19th century, they were some tough cookies. And one thing they did have was morality. They knew right from wrong. I had a conversation with a couple folks last night about the same issue, because I think they've kind of lost their way too, as most folks have. But no one seems to know what's right from wrong anymore. I mean, we used to have to guess about those things. You know, you don't almost kill somebody or slightly kill somebody or kill somebody a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Values. You can't have values before you have morality, because you need to know right from wrong in order to know how to value something. So, and everyone's constantly now functioning off of ego. Not that we didn't have that before. Even during Martin Luther King's time and, you know, during Malcolm X's time, there's a lot of egos that were leading them. But it's really got to the point where it's just out of control, Shareef. It's just out of control. You know. And until we can reel that in, and I don't know how can we unify? How can you have a plan to attack anything in order so that we can move forward?
Well, I was hoping we'd be a little bit more positive tonight, but
well, I mean, you know, I'm being positive.
It is what it is.
I'm sure there is a way. I said that rhetorically, but I don't. We have to take one step at a time, and as Michelle did say, we have to start with us first on an individual basis, and then move forward from there. You know, back with morality, so that we can, you know, form some values. At this point, tell me anything. I'm not hearing anything. No. But anyways.
Okay, thank you. Well, we are getting late. It's 7:53 on my clock, so let's skip over the love note, even though I will say, you know, Malcolm's love for Black people certainly comes through very strongly in this speech. But let's go into our poetry on revolutionary love. And Shareef, do you have something to
Yeah, I have something.
paint us with?
Got a little something over
A
here.
little something.
I'm ready.
All right.
I was going to read something else, but because this last part of the conversation compelled me to, I happened to catch another piece that was consistent with what you're talking about. So I'll do that one. It's called In the Blink. In the Blink.
Mm-hmm.
In the Blink. In the blink. Flip the switch. Switch the flip. Here today, nowhere tomorrow. Live the dream today, tomorrow, nightmare, sorrow. You know what's around the corner, waiting for you? And here you are feeling smug and fit, talking mucho shit. Somebody asks you, you say, life's great, I'm living the dream. Know what I mean? Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better? Couldn't be better? You actually believe your shit will last forever? Whatever. Name it. 401k, timeshares, getaways, silk underwear, cribs, rides, ass, wine, dine, etc. None of that shit lasts past the last breath. Death is the switch that flips everybody's script. You need more than material acquisition to make the impending inevitable transition smooth. So it behooves you to be wise, think smart, so that your beginning may start with a happy ending. Truth be told, money, silver, gold, and all things considered are nice, but can't acquire that what's valued. Don't have a price to be bought, to be sold and bought. But can't acquire that what's valued. Don't have a price to be sold and bought. Think at least twice. That is food for thought. That's that piece.
All right, thank you. That is food for thought.
Can I hit one more? Thank you, dear. Can I hit one more?
Yeah, go on.
If we got time, unless Bill want to drop something, man. I don't want to take his time up.
Bill?
I'll go after you. Go ahead.
There was a piece in the book. That was in the book, by the way. The book in the book, Poetic Acts for the Conscious Munchies.
Okay.
All right. There was another piece, and I'm trying to flip the page to find it. Just give me 1 second, and I'll get it for you. Okay. It's called Do They? Do They? Do they remember the thousands of civilians they were killing in Hiroshima, Nagasaki? Mushroom clouds, then firestorms, nuclear terror dome, no more mommy, daddy, or a home. Palestine, Soweto, Joburg, have you heard of Rwanda? Cries when babies die, earth cooking on deep fry. Life and limb at a premium, no more than stepping on bugs. Mass murder wiped out mother hugs. Indifference and tolerance replace love. What have the people done? You kill for freedom or just for fun? Acquire wealth and power at the point of a gun? Are stars and stripes the logo for tanks and guns? With the people's blessings, the carnage goes on as it's business as usual back on the farm. Got your hot dogs and genocide here. Get your hot dogs and genocide here. Wash it down with napalm beer. What the fuck should you and I care? Why the fuck should you and I care? A few thousand slaughtered here and there, all for freedom, right? Hey, you told us that's why we fight. Raise your bear and give a cheer. It's Memorial Day, and Blackwater Halliburton's here. Hip hip hooray. Might makes right, wins the day.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
Very cool.
Do they remember? Bill William S. Peters Sr. Just Bill.
Okay. This one is Here We Go. Here we go.
All right, all right.
We have been held down for so long, but that's all right. And we thank you for all the unnecessary hardships you have put upon our people, whereas it has made us that much stronger. We are survivors. The day will come as sure as the pendulum of a clock swings back and forth when we will rise again and take our rightful place as a respected, colorful, significant, ordained, integral, blessed, gifted segment of humanity. It is inevitable. We are the hued man. Our color is undeniable. This is our gift. So here we go. We are marching down that road that seems to have no end. But I know, as sure as there is creation, as sure as there is a creator, that this journey does not last always. And their destination will come about. And the destination will come about. And those same unnecessary challenges and hardships we have endured far too long will come to pass. So, won't you join us, hand in hand, heart in heart? This is for the good of the whole. Join us. So here we go. When one suffers, all suffers.
What's the name of that one, Bill?
Here we go.
Now here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
I hear that.
Is that in a book?
No, not yet.
Bravo. Bravo.
Here we
On the
go.
money.
All
On the
right.
money.
Well, thank you.
And I got one last piece I'll read real quick. It's called Contemplation of Faith. And I'm sure my brother can understand this. In examination, I must admit that my faith has been weak most of my life. There are many things I held on to that did not come true, and many things that did come about in spite of my doubts and my bouts with that relation of trust. There is a prevailing darkness that abides within me, sitting just on the corner of my peripheral spiritual sight, telling me, suggesting to me that perhaps I am not worthy, or perhaps God has another plan. These are but a few of the mistruths we feed ourselves that we may press on. I have found that my faith is primarily seated in my desire and whimsical wishes for the eye candy that sojourns through our lives, and of course, my undue expectations that my Creator allowed me to recreate Him to do my bidding. But we all know that is not how life's equation is truly solved nor resolved. But Mama always told me, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Well, I have seen a lot. There is much more I desire to see, and so much more that I cannot. Perhaps this is where faith bridges the gap over the rivers of doubt and frustration. We hold on to that ethereal quality of life that may never come about. But who wants to live in a land where make-believe is no longer believed?
Wow. That's cool.
Man.
Make
Very
believe is no longer believed. What is that, the land of truth?
The land of reality.
The land of reality. Not many of us want to be in that world.
That's right. That's right.
But I like it. Well, guys, it has been quite wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We are back on track. We are, tonight is meeting what? Tonight is meeting 11 out of 16. So we have 5 meetings left, straight through between now and April 22nd. So I will see you all next week reading our story together. And thanks for joining us.
Okay.
And
Have
with-
a good one, everybody. Good night.
Take care.
Shareef is saying something. Shareef?
Yeah, you never ate them fruits on the cabinet, man, ever since I've been coming on this show, man.
No, he didn't know the fruit back there.
Who?
Them apples never moved.
And where? At my place?
Yeah, behind you.
Oh,
Now, I'm just messing with you.
that's onions and garlic.
I can't do that for me. It look like apples.
Unless I do some real cooking, they're going to be sitting there for a while.
You better put that in the freezer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Bill, I hope the father feels better. I hope things work out well for him.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, indeed, man. My prayers, man. Indeed.
Thank you so much for
Thank
all
you.
that.
Have a great, blessed weekend, people.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Good
Love you guys.
Much
Good night,
love.
Bill.
Take care of yourself.
Love you.
Good night. Okay.